China's economy hits growth target in 2025. But the country's population shrinks for the fourth straight year. And the Shenzhou 20 lands perfectly, even without a crew. Hello and welcome to TVB News. I'm Melissa Hekalea. China's gross domestic product grew 5% year-on-year in 2025, meeting the official target. The National Bureau of Statistics stated that the main goals and tasks for economic and social development were fully achieved last year, bringing the 14th five-year plan period to a successful conclusion. Samantha Lee reports.
In 2025, China's GDP surpassed a milestone of 140 trillion yuan for the first time, marking a 5% growth year-on-year. Industrial output recorded a 5.9% expansion and is likely to maintain its top global ranking for the 16th consecutive year. Residents' income continued to increase, with national per capita disposable income rising 5% to over 43,000 yuan. Total retail sales of consumer goods exceeded 50 trillion yuan, up by 3.7%. Final consumption expenditure contributed 52% to GDP growth. The services and trade sectors also saw growth, accounting for 32.7% of the total economic expansion. The only decline was seen in national fixed asset investment, which fell 3.8% compared to the previous year. To sum up the country's economic performance, Director of the National Bureau of Statistics Kang Yi said, facing abrupt changes in the external environment and mounting domestic challenges, China has implemented more proactive macroeconomic policies, which helped offset adverse external shocks and stabilize the foundation for development. He added that the economy still faces numerous long-standing hurdles and emerging problems. Kang said the country has to adopt more vigorous macro policies to boost domestic consumption and ensure a solid start for the next five-year plan. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
Meanwhile, China's population dropped for a fourth consecutive year, standing at around 1.4 billion at the end of 2025. The country's birth rate has also sunk to a record low since 1949. Mimo Singhai reports.
China's National Bureau of Statistics on Monday said that the number of births had dropped to 7.92 million in 2025, a decline of 1.62 million. The birth rate was recorded as 5.63 per 1,000 people, the lowest on record since the establishment of the People's Republic of China in 1949. When asked about their opinions of having children, some mainlanders said that financial situation would be a decisive considering factor. To have children, you must be able to afford a marriage first. But if you can't, then of course you cannot afford children, this man explained. Even for those who are financially capable, they will choose to go traveling and take care of themselves first, this woman said. China was the world's most populous country until India surpassed it in 2023. Faced with a shrinking population, the Chinese government has introduced measures to encourage more young people to marry and give birth. That includes a childcare subsidy program, offering parents 3,600 yuan every year for each child under the age of 3. Beijing expected the policy to benefit more than 20 million families each year. An expert suggested the government to strengthen its childcare-related measures to tackle the situation. He said that population growth matters because it determines a country's sustainability in economic development. Memos 9, TVB News.
The Chinese New Year travel rush, also known as Chunyun in China, will begin on February 2. Train tickets have gone on sale today. Tickets for popular routes between Hong Kong West Kowloon Station and the mainland have already sold out. Samantha Lee has more.
With less than a month to go until the Chinese New Year, some residents set off early to visit relatives for a few days before returning to Hong Kong for the festival. Local resident Mr. Chen, who was heading to Chaozhou, said it would be difficult to secure a train ticket or book a hotel room during the Chinese New Year, so it is better to go early while they are still available. The mainland Chinese New Year public holiday will run from February 15th to 23rd. Some mainland travelers said they will try to grab a train ticket early to visit Hong Kong during the break. This Guangzhou tourist said he is planning to revisit Hong Kong to see his family, probably after the first or second day of the Chinese New Year. The China Railway 12306 website shows that some train tickets from Hong Kong to Beijing or Guangzhou for the first day of the travel rush were snapped up. In Guangzhou, passengers can also buy train tickets for February 2nd. Tickets for train services from Guangzhou or Shenzhen to Guiyang, Chongqing, and Chengdu were popular, with most trips selling out within just 5 minutes of release. This as the China National Railway Group announced that tickets for each day's travel will be made available 15 days in advance of the departure date. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
The return capsule of the Shenzhou 20 spaceship carrying no astronauts touched down at the Dongfeng landing site in North China's Inner Mongolia Autonomous Region at 9:34 a.m. this morning. The China Manned Space Agency said an on-site inspection confirmed that the exterior of the Shenzhou 20 return capsule was generally intact and the items inside were in good condition. It noted that the spaceship's return mission was a complete success. The spacecraft was originally scheduled to return 3 astronauts to Earth in November 2025, but failed to meet the requirements for their safe return. Tiny cracks were found in its viewport window, most probably caused by impact from space debris. The 8 European countries targeted by U.S. President Donald Trump for a 10% tariff for opposing American control of Greenland blasted the move, warning that his threats undermine transatlantic relations and risk a dangerous downward spiral. Elsewhere, during a visit to Doha, Qatar, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney stressed his support for Greenland amid the U.S. takeover threats. Meanwhile, in an interview on NBC's Meet the Press, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent doubled down on his support for the White House's bid to gain control of Greenland. Daniel Burrell tells us more.
The 8 European countries targeted by US President Donald Trump for a 10% tariff for opposing American control of Greenland blasted the move, warning his threats undermine transatlantic relations and risk a dangerous downward spiral. Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen, visiting his Norwegian counterpart in Oslo, said Denmark would continue to focus on diplomacy. He said the US is also more than the president. There are also checks and balances in American society. Meanwhile, during a visit to Doha, Qatar, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney stressed his support for Greenland amid the US takeover threats.
The future of Greenland, decisions about the future of Greenland, are for Greenland and Denmark to decide. And the security of Greenland. Security is first and foremost for them, but very much falls within the responsibilities of NATO.
Welcome back. In southern Spain, the death toll has risen to 39 with dozens of people injured after a collision between 2 high-speed trains. One train derailed, jumping onto the track in the opposite direction and slamming into an oncoming train. Officials say it's the worst train accident in the country in more than a decade. Tracy Furness has more.
Members of Spain's emergency military unit, UME, were seen leaving the Moron Air Force Base late on Sunday, en route to the site of the worst train crash in the country since 2013. The deadly train accident in southern Spain triggered a major emergency operation in the small village closest to the crash site.
We're in Adamuz, the village nearest to the train crash site. The emergency services are basically recovering bodies from the crash. The crash happened at around 8 o'clock on Sunday evening. The Spanish Transport Minister, Oscar Puentes, said that it was a truly strange accident.
The tail end of an evening train travelling from Malaga to Madrid with some 300 passengers went off the rails near Cordoba, slamming into a train with some 200 passengers aboard coming from Madrid to Huelva, according to rail operator Adif. Andalusia's regional president, Juan Manuel Moreno, said 75 passengers were hospitalised in Cordoba, 15 with serious injuries. Members of Spain's Civil Guard and Civil Defence were on site working through the cold evening. Only emergency services were allowed to approach the crash site. The Spanish Red Cross set up a help centre in Adamuz near the crash site. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
A crowd of Syrians gathered in the middle of Raqqa to celebrate a ceasefire agreement and the entry of government forces into the city's province. Residents waved Syrian flags, lit fireworks, and fired machine guns into the air. The Syrian government had announced a ceasefire with the Syrian Democratic Forces, or SDF, which was mainly Kurdish-led. They controlled the northeast of the country for over a decade. The ceasefire agreement includes the dismantling of the SDF and having its forces join Syria's military and security forces. The SDF would have to give up the Raqqa and Deir el-Zur provinces in the Syrian government to the Syrian government, as well as its border crossings and gas fields. There is no clear timeline on when and how the different parts of the agreement will go into full effect. U.S. President Donald Trump will be among the world leaders attending the World Economic Forum, which kicks off in the Swiss town of Davos on Tuesday. He'll be joined by corporate chiefs and other stakeholders for 4 days of talks that aim to promote dialogue and economic progress amid tariff threats and a potential invasion of Greenland. China is hoping to prove itself as a stabilizing force in the global economy after Beijing announced GDP growth for 2025 at 5%, meeting expectations. Nasvi Karim with more.
Davos, an affluent Swiss alpine town known for hosting the World Economic Forum, where global elites gather to solve the world's poverty problems. But as billionaire wealth soars, global poverty remains entrenched.
This is a year where you see the billionaires actually reach $18.3 trillion of wealth. That's 3 times faster accumulation of wealth this year compared to any other year. And just last year, they have added $2.5 trillion to their kitty. And that amount is enough to eradicate poverty 26 times over.
Nearly 3,000 attendees from the interlinked worlds of business, advocacy and policy will tackle issues including the growing gap between rich and poor, AI's impact on jobs, and concerns about geo-economic conflict. Adding to the glitz is US President Donald Trump, whose critics say his tax policies are only contributing to the rich-poor divide at home, while his tariff threats have created uncertainty in the global economy. Also attending is Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, whose country faces US sanctions over recent protests, and Colombian President Gustavo Petro, who Trump once said was next in line after US forces seized Venezuela's former leader, Nicolas Maduro. Hoping to inject some stability into the global arena is China, which will be represented in Davos by Vice Premier He Lifeng. Beijing just announced that GDP growth for 2025 was 5%, showing strong resilience despite global headwinds. Borge Brunner, president of the WEF, said China is not only consolidating its traditional strengths, but also expanding into new areas via enhanced investment in research, development and innovation. No WEF event is complete without protests. Hundreds of people marched in the town on Sunday, calling for an end to capitalism and the wars that are accelerating climate change, and for a democratization of the economy based on needs. Some protesters came in solidarity with Greenland following Trump's threats to acquire the territory. The WEF theme for this year is a spirit of dialogue, even though some critics say it's nothing more than the usual rhetoric. Nasvi Karim, TVB News.
Chief Justice Andrew Chung on Monday said Hong Kong's rule of law is robust and that the courts fully respect individuals' right of expression. Speaking at the opening of the legal year 2026, Chung said proceedings of former media tycoon Jimmy Lai and his companies had received worldwide attention. The top judge said the convictions of Lai have gathered criticisms of the verdicts, the courts, and the rule of law in Hong Kong.
As to sweeping comments on the state of the rule of law in Hong Kong, arising from the outcome of a particular case, many of us may be forgiven for growing weary of simplistic assertions that the rule of law is dead whenever a court reaches a result one finds unpalatable. It cannot be that the rule of law is alive one day, dead the next, and resurrected on the third.
The Hong Kong-China Association of Athletics said they disqualified a man from running in the marathon on Sunday after he was spotted carrying a baby in the race. A viral internet video shows that a man was running in the marathon event with a baby hanging on his chest. It's reported that the man ran for 15 kilometers before he was stopped. The Hong Kong-China Association of Athletics confirmed the incident on Monday, saying the man had violated a competition rule. Under the rule, runners who are with infants, children aged under 16, or who do not wear a valid event bib are forbidden to enter the race course. A pediatric doctor who watched the video estimated the baby to be less than 6 months old. She said baby's bones and joints are soft, so the back and forth movement from running could damage their necks and heads. A man was sentenced to 12 years and 4 months in prison for smuggling over 5 kilograms of cannabis into the city. On January 2024, 5.5 kilograms of cannabis was seized from a suitcase that belonged to the defendant. The 53-year-old claimed he was unaware that his suitcase contained drugs as it was transported to the airport by someone else. In mitigation, the defense stated that the defendant committed the crime due to financial hardship. The judge granted a 1/3 reduction for his guilty plea, resulting in a final sentence of 12 years and 4 months. It was also noted that in 2017, the defendant drove a city bus onto a pavement in Sham Shui Po, leaving 3 dead. He was then jailed for 2.5 years for dangerous driving. That is the news. Thanks for watching. Pearl Magazine is up shortly. See you then.